that can be.
So we're back, and as we were last night, we're still kind of licking our wounds from South Carolina, where we took a pretty bad thrashing from Hillary Clinton. But something that was brought up that not to make excuses and not to belittle the southern states in terms of the Democratic primaries, but these states are not exactly bastions of strength for the Democratic Party anyway. I mean, we'd like them to be. We'd like to have the Democratic Party strong in the South again, and it would be a very different Democratic Party than was in the South back in the 1960s. But we have a clip here coming up from a rally for Bernie Sanders, and they have rallies every Saturday morning. Saturday morning into the afternoon, Peace Vigil, and then a Bernie Sanders rally at Rogers Park in Danbury. But here's a clip from a very good interview conducted by our own John Wolfert. Go ahead, John.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me, and you two up there in the sky.
Ruth, I'm standing here at the Bernie rally in front of the War Memorial on South and Main Street in Danbury, Connecticut. I'm here with a friend of mine who's me, Rob Garavell. And I just have a few questions about what his thoughts are on Bernie and his candidacy.
First, John, I want to thank you for interviewing me not only here, but also on our issues of war and peace, which is so essential. We've been here for 9 years doing that, trying to promote a world of greater peace. And I do appreciate your giving us the opportunities. But what we're doing here today, and we've been doing this this is our third event, this is our third rally. We're here to promote Bernie Sanders for president. For those viewers that are not aware of who Mr. Sanders is, he's a senator from Vermont who was also a congressman up there, a state legislator, and has drawn a great deal of popularity up there in his tenure in all three of those positions. Very popular in Vermont, and now he's running for president. And he's doing this, he's made tremendous strides, and one of the tremendous accomplishments he has, he's not taking any PAC money, he's not taking the big money that the other candidates are. He does have a large treasury, but that's all based on the average donation of being somewhere around $35 or $40. So this is a grassroots campaign. Many people have supported, but he refuses to take the big money that has tainted, tarnished, and really caused a lot of divisiveness in our system today.
Do you believe he's telling the truth and he's going to follow through with a lot of his campaign promises?
No one questions his honesty. No one. I mean, even his enemies do not question his honesty. I love it. Republicans like John McCain and Ron Paul, they've all said that he's one of the most honest men in politics, except for they might say them themselves are. But
I think that a social democrat is a socialist, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the social democrat piece, because that's something that is missed. And at one point he did come out and say, I'm a socialist, and he did say that without the social democrat part. But that being said, all of his stances have not been strictly for what many would perceive as socialism or communism. He's for civil rights. He's for civil liberties, which is why someone who's more libertarian can stand behind him, because he doesn't support NSA spying on citizens without warrant or reason. He doesn't support the Patriot Act. Okay? So people who think that he's socialist and that he wants to control your lives, his record shows different. His records show he's for independent rights and civil liberties. Is in essence, it's democracy as we see it now, but for the good of the whole, as opposed to a narrow field of capitalism where it's for the people who have the most have the most influence. Democratic socialism says we all are in this together and we're all looking out for each other. That's not the ideology of capitalism.
No, it isn't.
So he would never say he's a capitalism, and majority of Americans who know capitalism in its most truest form wouldn't support it as well, which is why polls show that more than half of Americans are more comfortable with the term socialism.
Democratic socialists want the abolition of capitalism in its entirety. This is not what Sanders is going to, Senator Sanders is representing. He's representing a regulation on labor, a regulation on corporation. He's for an increase in the minimum wage to $15 an hour, where corporations can show profits that they can afford to pay that. Small businesses, he's going to go very cautious with. He's not going to inundate any small businesses by excessive labor costs, and that may be in small businesses, but I think the proven fact is a lot of these corporations could well afford to pay their employees $15 an hour, and then what's ever left over, maybe we could give some of it to Wall Street.
What is your opinion of his strengths and weaknesses in his run?
Well, I think one of the concerns that people have, we dealt with President Obama, the issue of racism that reared its ugly head again in Ferguson and Baltimore and other places throughout our country. I think one of the things we're dealing with now is we have a female candidate, and we would love to see a candidate who is qualified, but we don't want to have what I call genderism. That is supporting a lady, supporting a person just because he's a lady. Bernie's down the line on all the issues as far as women's rights, and if you look at his record, he's a lot more progressive on women's rights than Ms. Clinton. So I think one of the concerns is, one, his appearance. He doesn't look physically appealing. He doesn't have the telegenic. He's telegenic. He's very good at speaking, but he's gray, and people vote on things that are superficial. Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan had one thing in common. They both had beautiful heads of hair. I think Bernie Sanders, and it's amazing, and what's really impressive is on poll after poll, he has garnered like 80% of the support of young people. And what does that say? Young people are concerned about the problems of our country. Our country belongs to all of us, but to the young people, it belongs to them more. And I try to encourage him, keep up with your ideals on your issues of war and peace. He's for veterans. He's for a de-emphasis on sending troops over. He did not vote with George W. for the entry into the war with Iraq. Hillary Clinton did, and she has said, I made a mistake. Bernie Sanders didn't make that mistake, and that mistake cost thousands of lives and trillions of dollars. It's kind of immoral to talk about money when it comes to lives, because I always put that. I agree with what you're saying. But when you talk about young people coming back maimed, psychologically disturbed, and Hillary made a mistake. So I think we can look at. I think this is a people's movement. This is a movement of people that are genuinely concerned about the direction we're going in our country, and I think he offers a viable alternative to the status quo. To the status quo, and I think he said it very nicely when he said, "This isn't about me. This is about the people that were standing behind him, who were his campaign supporters." So I think people have a sense of hope with Mr. Sanders. And that's not, I don't think, delusional. I think when the dust all settles, this movement will come forward and build a coalition to deal with whoever is the nominee.
What are his strengths and his weaknesses in his campaign that he's
I believe his first and foremost strength is his record and his consistency and honesty. The reason that the youth vote has gone strongly to Bernie is because they see the name, they see Bernie Sanders, who is that? They go online, they look at his record, and they look at him when he was standing up for LGBT rights in the 80s, okay, when he was against the Gulf War, the Iraq War, and these conflicts that, you know, Monday morning quarterback, everybody says, oh, those were a mistake. Well, he called it in from the beginning. He's the one who understood the impact what Glass-Steagall would have on our country. So that type of judgment and record is driving him forward so strongly with those who research it. I would say, statistically speaking, and the reason you're seeing his growth in the polls, the momentum behind him, is because the more people know about Bernie, the more that people know him, the more likely they are to support him. And I do not want this to come across too harshly, but I'm just going to point out, the more that people know about Hillary, the less likely they are to support her. The more that they know about her true record. It's one thing to have paid ads out there. There we go, a Trump supporter. It's one thing to have paid advertisements saying what you say now. It's one thing to have the majority of the establishment supporting you, and it's another to have been consistently right and consistently on the points. I would say his biggest weakness with liberals is his more moderate stance on gun restrictions. Okay, and that's actually another good point between the two is they say that, you know, no one's, you know, that how could Bernie get anything done? Well, Bernie's creating this revolution. It's to make things very clear. When people say he cannot change the healthcare, he cannot change corporate finance and do all these things, they are absolutely right. He cannot do that by himself. The president does not have the authority to do that by himself. What he needs is the support of Congress. He needs the legislative branch in order to implement these changes. It's no different with Hillary Clinton. Okay, Hillary Clinton will continue to divide, you know, the Republicans from the Democrats, and if the Republicans still hold the majority, she's not going to get anything done either. But to your point about his weakness with being more moderate on the gun issue, he comes from a rural state. The majority of America, at least by landmass, is rural. Okay? It is different for them. It is more decisive for them for someone to say, we're going to take your guns away. Okay? And that's where some liberals might support Hillary a little bit more, because they see her as being more controlling of guns. And he's a little bit more moderate in that regard. But that's also where he unites the middle of America, the Americans who do support the right to bear arms, which I am one of them.
Thank you for coming down, John. And I'd like to say we're going to be here every Saturday, like you said, John, on the corner of South and Main and Danbury, 1 to 2 p.m. And you know something? This campaign has gone a long way on small donations, and we also say it's the small donations that are important, but it's the small efforts. No effort is too small. Many small efforts amount to make a big difference. So whatever you can do, we have Bernie's website that you can check out on what is happening locally and throughout the country and how you can help this campaign be a success. Thanks, John.
Get big money out of politics. Reverse climate change. Equality and dignity for all. Yeah, Bernie, our man, has a plan. As they say in Second City Comedy Improvisation, Bernie's plan works for every woman, child, and man in this land.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Nicely done. And some good thoughts expressed there by the folks at the rally. And these rallies are going on all over America. This is not certainly an isolated instance. This is folks. These are Americans that are standing up for what they believe in and taking a little time out of their lives to make a difference. And point well made about the youth of America. Young Americans have more at stake going forward than folks of my age or Joe's age. We're here for the short run. They're here for the long run. Young folks know better, and I think can look more clearly at what they have to look forward to. Joe?
They're eager to do the research. The point is well taken. Who's this guy Bernie? Who's this Hillary? Mm-hmm. All right, they're not trapped yet. They're not brainwashed mm-hmm. by the establishment.
Yep.
And they had mentioned the fact that Hillary has an agenda for the American people if she's elected. Bernie has an agenda if he's elected, and it's whether or not anything's going to really happen if Hillary is elected, mm-hmm. as opposed to Bernie being elected. Well, it doesn't look like much, if anything, would be done to improve the lot of the middle class or the minorities in this country if she were elected, simply because she is part of the establishment, and that the establishment mm-hmm. is something that is hard to conceive of, because it does have tentacles mm-hmm. and it reaches into areas that would surprise everyone. Mm-hmm. There's even a liberal establishment.
Yeah.
There's the Black Caucus, for example. They're part of the establishment. Mm-hmm. They benefit from their association with Clinton money, the Democratic National Committee, and the media, all right, also benefits from the status quo. A certain amount of money is filtered down in their direction through businesses they can afford to pay for the ads on television. Mm-hmm. And so they don't want any of that rocked. They don't particularly care mm-hmm. What's happening to the middle class, because they consider themselves exempt from that. Mm-hmm. It's amazing, but sometimes you could scratch your head and you could say to yourself, hey, is there a caste system in the United States? Well, there is a caste system in the United States. There's a small caste system that carries a tremendous amount of power, and that power comes from their financial wealth. And then there's a much larger caste that is struggling to make ends meet. Mm-hmm. And that small caste will occasionally throw a few bones to the large masses that are being deprived. And they think, well, they're doing something for me. But they're really, if they're doing something for you, they're doing something better and bigger for themselves. Now,
trickle-up economics, if you will, rather than the Reagan notion of trickle-down economics, which really, in fact, never existed. But
I got to mention one thing, if you don't mind. It's as far as that Democratic National Committee is concerned, one of the very influential people, I think it's a senator from Hawaii, a woman by the name of Tulsi Gabbard. I believe that.
I think she's in the House of Representatives. But
is that where she is?
I think she's in the House of Representatives. Well, go ahead. She's on the Democratic National Committee.
She defected from the Hillary camp. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Well, she resigned from the Democratic National Committee because she felt that, as you know, that the Democratic National Committee had stacked the deck in terms of the debates to try to minimize their effect on people by having them at times of days and days of the week where they would get less viewers, therefore keeping the two candidates out from under the microscope of
right. Since Hillary already has bigger exposure, we'll just kind of keep Bernie's exposure low, and that will prevent.
When you're ahead, the game plan when you're ahead is to run out the clock.
And it's amazing what they're doing right now. I mean, the victories that they're getting in the South, Hillary's. You would think, all right, that she won the election. And that when she gets that kind of airtime and when she gets that kind of boost from the media, it leaves Bernie supporters with the false impression that, it's over for him. We might as well throw our vote toward him. It's so unfair. I mean, the media, the watchdog for the people. Once again,
Joe,
pawn of the establishment.
No disrespect meant towards the media, although I have a tremendous amount of disrespect toward them. But the media is going to promote the candidates that will have the biggest purses, the largest number of dollars to spend on advertising on the media.
Right.
So it's a bit self-serving on their part, and that's understandable. That's just the facts of life. Now, I'm going to throw a thought out there. I'm going to throw a thought out there that I think it's fair to say that the goals and the objectives of Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton are not hugely different. They're not hugely different. They're both coming from a similar spot. However, the job of the President of the United States, the person's chief job is to be a cheerleader for what's right, to accomplish things. And what I see as Hillary Clinton already is playing toward low expectations. Well, we can't accomplish anything anyway, so, but I'll do what I can. Whereas Bernie Sanders is placing very high ideals and very high expectations that we probably can't achieve. We cannot achieve a lot of the stuff that we're aiming for. But if you don't try...
You've got to have the idealism.
Exactly.
You got to have something to strive for. You want to get ahead.
You have to make the effort.
There are some things that are in place right now that are an improvement.
Yep.
The Affordable Care Act.
There's an improvement over what we had before, certainly.
But it's not really an Affordable Care Act. It's an Affordable Insurance Act.
Correct,
All right? So if we can build upon that, that's good. All right? But Hillary is tied into the pharmaceutical company. She gets money from from Wall Street. That Goldman Sachs $675,000 for speeches, 3 speeches.
Yep.
And you're telling me that they don't expect more? Well,
it's an investment on their part. Nobody gives money in large quantities. Nobody gives money to a candidate without a set of expectations in return.
There's this establishment. There's the Democratic establishment that has its favored, its privileged candidates that they have put out and they want in the general election, and which they want to win. Same thing with the Republicans.
Yeah.
Although the Republicans are pulling their hair out now because they got a character out there who doesn't necessarily toe the line. And it's understandable why they're going to do the best they can to marginalize him. Now, this whole thing about David Duke.
Well, he kind of pulls the sheet, if I may. He kind of pulls the sheet off of the truth of the matter is that, and Marty Heiser and Marty does a show on Comcast. We have great discussions about this, and Marty sometimes feels that I'm saying that all Republicans are racist. Not at all the case, not at all.
3 minutes.
But all people that are racists will vote Republican because the Republican Party comes much closer to representing their particular interests.
They're more, what you would say, establishment, white interest.
Yeah, and Donald Trump says right out loud what a lot of his supporters believe and what a lot of his supporters feel and a lot of what other Republican candidates aren't able to say or don't feel comfortable saying that, in fact,
we're interested in preserving white money.
There you go. There you go. We're the white people's party. We'll give a little lip service to some other groups on specific issues.
Easy ones. Like the abortion issue.
Yeah, pro-life. Who can argue with pro-life?
We can take them as constituents.
Yeah. Who can argue? Right. Everybody, for gosh sakes, everybody's pro-life.
Anything that doesn't threaten the money, well, we can stand behind.
Yeah, everybody. In fact, Joe, everybody's pro-life. Nobody's pro-death.
Of course.
But a lot of us that are pro-life understand that in a country where adults have responsibilities and rights, that you can be pro-life and also be pro-choice. Recognize that women are the ones that are making the decision because they're the ones that are directly affected.
They have a right to their own bodies.
Absolutely.
A woman has a right to, as long as there's something in her body, regardless of what it is. If that is in her body and feeding off her body, all right. Now, once it's through feeding off her body and it's out there, it's a whole different ballgame.
And it's said that a certain political party, Republicans, once the baby's born, they really don't give a rat's ass about it anymore. And that's maybe a little bit harsh, a little bit of a harsh criticism. But and reaching out to my friend Marty Heiser, who's joined us on the show many, many times over the years, if you want to change the world one person at a time, if you want to end or minimize abortions, which have been with us forever, there's always been abortions, then for gosh sakes, adopt. Because that's the best way to enhance the life of a child through adoption.
Adopt Bernie Sanders. Adopt Bernie Sanders. Get out there. Get online.
We're going to continue the discussion, but
we're running out of time again.
This is Progressive Soup. I'm David Stevenson. Our great guest, Joe Niola. We're going to continue the discussion as the camera fades out.
And the election's not over yet.
Do a little research. Super Tuesday tomorrow.
Not till the fat lady sings. Stay strong. Stay with it.
Stay strong.
The movement is still on.